Well, good morning. My name is Professor Jesse O'Hantley. I am the interim dean for Kent Business School. I just really wanted to begin by saying thank you. We are delighted to be hosting the 39th British Academy of Management Conference here at University of Kent. I offer a hearty welcome to all you attendees, especially those who've had to travel far to be here. Next, I'd really like to thank BAM, our organizing committee, Vin, you can throw up your hands, Maria, Ben, he was here somewhere, Pretam, I don't know, may not be here, Abdullah, Push, Rebecca, and especially Caroline from the conference office. I also really wanted to thank our two co-chairs, Professors Patricia Lewis and Thanos Papadopolous, without all of whom this conference would not be possible. So thank you. Next, really, I just want to point out Canterbury, I think, is a lovely town. The weather outside maybe not. But I hope you will find the time to enjoy the many different attractions we have here. If you see me and want any personal recommendations, pull me aside and I can give you a few. Canterbury, as you'll well know, has a long history of being a pilgrimage city. We're also situated very close to Dover and Folkestone, two of the main points of entry for travelers and goods from Europe and beyond. So I really think that makes it particularly fitting that this year's conference theme is borders. Canterbury itself is a border city, and many of you will have had to cross borders to get here. At University of Kent, we really pride ourselves on being an inclusive and welcoming university. Our students come from all over the world. In the business school itself, I did a count, and on the website last night, I think our academics come from at least 26 different countries. I think that shows really that Kent, the business school itself, tries to transcend borders of one kind or another. That also includes our research, which includes covering the full range of business areas and management, much of it interdisciplinary in nature. I won't take too much more time. I really just wanted to say as well, finally, really, is we have really delighted to have lined up a really delightful set of keynote speakers from academia and industry, many of whom, like this conference theme, have had to cross borders from, I did a quick look, I think it was New Zealand, Saudi Arabia, the Netherlands, America, and other parts of England. So please do take the time to attend what I'm sure will be a very engaging set of panel sessions with these speakers. Anyway, enough from me. Welcome again to BAM 2025 and welcome to University of Kent. Thank you.
Very good morning from me as well. My name is Thanos Papadopolous. I'm a professor here at the business school, one of the two deputy deans, but most importantly, I'm co-chair with my colleague, Professor Patricia Lewis. So a very warm welcome from us. As you know, the theme for this year's conference is borders. We know that globalization, connectivity, and mobility are central to 21st century business experience. We know that crossing borders as individuals, goods, services, and cultural values traverse domains in search of new markets, new opportunities, and of course, new lives. Our conference this year will examine border crossing in all of its forms. This may include temporal, spatial, geographical, sociological, and psychological transitions that everyday border crossing entails. We are having scholars from all over the world here to discuss issues that concern everybody. I guess borders, global challenges impact on everybody. We consider challenges for businesses, but also some of the debates in business and management, or business and management academics. How do we contribute? Do we contribute on our disciplines? Do we contribute in life in general? For organizations, questions such as how they can shape borders internally and externally with employers, customers, suppliers, and competitors, so that experience of cross-boarding do not become hindrance to the business are very important. This discussion has started already yesterday with our online version of the conference. with our esteemed keynote panelists debating mobility in the form of displacement driven by war, civil war, natural disaster, and climate change. Answering questions, for instance, how we can support the integration of displaced people. Today, our esteemed keynote panel on borders and business brings rich and diverse experience to the issue of borders and businesses, and will highlight the challenges organizations face as they navigate contemporary boundaries. Tomorrow, Thursday, our keynote panel, which focuses on borders in everyday organizational life, will bring extensive experience of social borders, and of course, we will draw out the challenge of navigating non-neutral boundaries. With this, please enjoy the conference, network, have fun, as much as weather permits outside. We welcome you once again to our school, Kent Business School, to our university, the University of Kent, and we are truly delighted to see such a diverse and engaged group of scholars. Again, we're delighted and excited to have you here, and we hope you find the conference stimulating, enriching, and enjoyable. Thank you very much. Welcome.
Just to add to what Jesse and Thanos have been saying, and to remind ourselves all, we all come here as individuals, and as individuals, we are all border crossers. Every single one of us here today crossed a border to get here, an international one, a regional one, a national one, a private one, or perhaps it's a career border for new PhD students when this is their first conference. You all bring your own individual voice, and the theme that we have developed is to allow us to think deeply about what is one of the great challenges of our times, the movement of people, the movement of businesses, but also borders in our everyday life as we seek to be more inclusive and open to all the difference that is around us. But I'd also like to say, in terms of thinking about the theme of the conference, and not only do we have our own individual voice, but as BAM, as a collective organisation, we have a collective voice. And I would hope, and going forward from this conference, that not only do we talk about our own research interests through our own voice, but also we develop our collective voice as academics who can contribute to solving or addressing or managing the great challenges of our times. And borders is one of those. So again, with my colleagues, I wish you a fantastic conference. I'm going to finish with a bit of housekeeping, which I thought I'm the woman, I better do. So the housekeeping, just to start off is, first of all, mobile phones, please put them onto airplane mode. We don't want any disruptions. We are not planning a fire alarm this morning. We've had a few last week. We're not planning one. If it rings, it's real. So please exit through the exit. It means leave the building. Please exit through the exit doors. And we have to congregate in the Chipperfield car park, which is just outside. And let's hope it's not raining, and let's hope it doesn't go off. The restrooms are just across. There's the ladies is just across the corridor here, and there's more along with gentlemen along the corridor there, and more downstairs. And the keynote panel will last an hour, and it will be an interactive session in terms of providing opportunities for the audience to ask the panel their particular questions. And it is being recorded, the session, because this is hybrid. Our colleagues who are attending the conference virtually are listening in to us, and welcome to them as well. So it will be recorded. So I would ask you please not to take photographs during the keynote, just in case you disturb the speakers. And there will be refreshments and breaks afterward. The lunch will be up in Kitia at 1 p.m. when the whole session ends. But the keynote panel itself will end at 12. So we wish you a fabulous conference. We are so proud to have you here at Kent. I'm getting all emotional now. It is with great pride. It is with great pride that we invite you and have you here at Kent. It's on. She doesn't trust me to turn my microphone on.
I'll turn mine on, yeah.
Right, just to say, well, good morning, everyone. How are we all doing today? I looked much tidier than this when I got up this morning, and then I went outside, and now I look a bit windswept, but we'll see what happens there. So it's my great pleasure to welcome you all to our 39th annual conference here in a beautiful, if a bit wet and windy, Kent. Before I start to give you my proper welcome and tell you a little bit about BAM and what we've been doing in the last year, I just want to echo our thanks to our conference hosts. And now I've got to find where they've run off to. I can see Thanos. Where's Patricia run off to? We just have a little token of our appreciation to you. So if we can just say thank you to you. Have to do that first before I forget to do it completely. And also at this time, just to say, I don't have they've already had their token of appreciation, but just to say a big thank you at this point as well to the amazing BAM team, Justina, Lewis, everyone in the office, Justin, who you will see with the longest legs in the world running up and down these stairs. Fantastic job as always. We're really, really grateful to your support. Right, so it is our 39th conference, and I'll be really honest with you. With everything that's going on in the sector, we were a bit worried this year as about whether anyone would turn up. And here you are. So we still have well over 1,000 delegates. Welcome to those people online as well as in the room. We have a very international audience. I think we get more international every year. So over 58 countries this year, over 300 events, 850 papers. Wow. And yesterday we had around 200 people at our doctoral symposium. So fantastic. So thank you for coming. Those of you that were at the virtual welcome will have heard me talk about BAM as a community. It's you lot turning up that makes it a community. And what a wonderful community it is to see you in the room. So thank you for that. A couple of other thank yous. We do rely on our sponsors and our exhibitors to make this, to give us some cash, basically, to make this such a good conference. So thank you to all of our sponsors and exhibitors. It's fantastic to have your support for another year. Some of these organisations we've really built partnerships with over the last few years, so it's great to see them here and supporting us again. Right, and then there's a really important welcome I'm going to do with someone that's quite quiet, but I'm going to embarrass him now. Last year at our conference, we said goodbye to Madeline Barrows, who had been our CEO for around 7 years. Just after that, in December last year, we welcomed Jack Harrington as our new CEO. So I'm going to ask Jack to stand up, and I'm going to ask if we can give him a big BAM welcome. He sounds a little strange. He's been here quite a long time now, but it is his first conference as CEO. So thank you, Jack, and thank you for your support. And welcome. Right then, I do want to talk a little bit about what we've been doing in the last year. We do an awful lot of stuff, and if you talk to any of us on the executive, on council, in the special interest groups, you will know that there's a lot going on, and I can't possibly do all of that justice in the few minutes that I have. I do want to give you some highlights and just a bit of a whistle-stop tour of some of the main things that we've been doing in the last year. Last year at conference, we launched our new set of strategic priorities. So you've seen this slide before if you were here last year. Nisreen nodding at me. I'm not going to go through this slide. Thank you. Feedback, I like it. I'm not going to go through this slide, but just a reminder of what we said we were going to do in this 4 or 5 year period. What we try and do at BAM really is talk to you as our membership about what's going on in the sector, what's challenging you, what's keeping you awake at night, if you like. And we try and put together a stream of work, a stream of activity that helps support you with that. And that's what we've tried to do with this, as well as our ongoing priorities, of course. I do want to highlight just the activities in a couple of the strategic priorities. So firstly, AI. It won't have escaped your notion that AI is causing some challenges within academia, and I think we're all trying to learn at speed what we should and shouldn't be doing with artificial intelligence. So we've made that a stream of our work, and we've made some great progress here. So first of all, some of you will have noticed that we sent out a survey asking people in the sector what they were doing, what their challenges were, what they wanted help with, basically. We will publish some high-level results from that on our website, but really we've used that to feed into this stream of work so that we can make sure that we're doing stuff that's helpful to you. One of the big streams of work that's coming out of that is our white paper series, and I'm really grateful to Pawan, Soam and Stephanie who are leading on that piece of work on the white paper series, and I'm delighted to launch our first paper in that series, which is about responsible use of generative AI for research. The QR, now I'm praying that the QR code leads somewhere, because yesterday it did, so please somebody give me a thumbs up. Way, thank you, Stephanie Reisner at the back. So please do have a look at the white paper. There's an awful lot of work that's gone into this. It's a really detailed piece of work, bringing together the evidence, practical guidance, and case examples of AI in responsible use of generative AI in research. In that white paper series, we will be looking at AI in other areas, of course, in learning and teaching, looking at the future of business schools as a result of AI, and also EDIR and well-being and sustainability as they relate to AI. So a lot of work coming out there. The other thing we wanted to do, because of course the AI field is very dynamic, and actually, by the time we've, this is a great piece of work, but by the time you've read it, it's probably slightly out of date because everything is changing so quickly. So the other thing that we wanted to do is build quite a dynamic repository of what people are doing, kind of experiences, practice, things that people in our sector, so you, have tried that have worked, or haven't worked, and what you learned from that. So we will be putting out a call, and we've developed a pro forma or a template for that, asking people to send us their examples of how you're using AI, your lessons from that, what's worked, so that we can learn from each other and really start a conversation around this. We will be launching quite soon a Substack channel that this will go on to, but we'll also look at bringing together some of those into themed selections, if you like. So please do, when you see this drop in your inbox or you see it on LinkedIn or whatever, please do send us your examples. It will be really simple for you to fill that in. And then the other one that any of you that have listened to either of my other welcomes this week so far will know is a passion of mine, is around well-being. And I don't want to talk too much about well-being at this, but I did want to highlight some of the work that we are doing in this area, because this is another really important one of our priorities. And really, since we launched this as a strategic priority, we know that actually, there are more and more of us struggling in the sector because of what's happening contextually, and some of the uncertainties and pressures in the sector. So there's a lot happening at this conference. Last year we had our wellbeing tree. So please do find the tree, write your ideas, your experiences, what your institution's doing, what it should be doing, what we should be doing on the apples, hang them on the tree, because we take those away and we feed that into this piece of work. And we had some great suggestions last year. There is a PDW on Friday morning that my colleague Sarah Robinson is leading, so do try and get along to that, but also come and talk to us. This is an important area of work, and we're trying to again understand what's happening in business schools, what should be happening, so that we can feed that into the work that we're doing. The first thing that came out of this, and another QR code that I'm silently praying about here, is our webinar series. We're launching that at this conference. The first webinar in our wellbeing webinar series will be on the 3rd of October, which will be more of a general introduction about wellbeing and supporting wellbeing within academia. But then after that, we have a number of themed webinars that are coming up around things like work-life balance and workload, around dealing with uncertainty, something we're all learning to do, I think, around things like dealing with chronic illness. And that will be a rolling webinar series. So we have set up the dates for the first 6, but actually, that will carry on. So please do let us know if you think actually we really need a conversation about this aspect of well-being. Again, let us know, talk to us. If you think you've got some interesting insights
again, let us know. We're really, really keen here that we focus on what institutions can be doing, what managers can be doing, what we as a community can be doing, so that we move away from a fix the person approach, if you like, where it's all about us doing yoga and mindfulness sessions, you know, and more about how we can deal with some of the systemic problems in our sector. So please do join in with that. And lots of else going on. I can't talk. There's much more highlights. You can see we have a lot of events. You know, last year we started talking about hashtag not just a conference. It's still very true. Over 100 events. We have 2 thriving journals, over 2,000 submissions across them last year. And I heard that actually we're going to have much more than that this year. So really, really thriving journals with British Journal of Management and International Journal of Management reviews. We've also launched our handbook of inclusive learning and teaching in business and management. Thank you to Martina, who was in front of me a minute ago. Now I've lost her. There she is. Thank you, Martina. And Kate and others for leading on that piece of work. There is a launch event for that tomorrow lunchtime, I think. So do come along and find out more about that handbook. Just another couple of highlights. We have also, one of our supporting priorities was around membership. And part of that, and the first job that we tasked Jack with, in fact, when he joined us, was to think about how we could build better relationships with institutions, and how we could encourage institutions to invest in BAM membership and BAM activities. We have developed a number of bulk membership packages, so our members are still individuals, so not the institution, but we have developed a number of packages where basically we can develop a bundle of memberships, programs, conference tickets, whatever, and you get a discount according to how much you spend as an institution. So if you think that's something that your institution might be interested in, if you think BAM can support you with developing research capacity in the institution, or teaching and learning capacity, or help support doctoral programs, and this is a way forward, then do let us know. And then just the other thing to highlight is that we did have the first winner of our Management Publication of the Year award this year, with the Chartered Management Institute and our partners, the Chartered Association of Business Schools. So great to see that off the ground, and we will be in a year or so going for the second one of that, because we've decided to do that at least biannually, at least initially. So lots going on. Right, I did want to spotlight on one of our portfolios, because we do spend a lot of time at these events talking about our strategic priorities. And of course, we have portfolios around research, around management, knowledge and education, around publications and so on and so forth that are ongoing. And there's a lot of work that's gone on in the last few years in management, knowledge and education. So I just wanted to highlight a couple of really exciting things that are coming up in that area. So first of all, what we've seen is that this portfolio is really developed under the stewardship of Ashley and Kate and our previous vice chairs in that area, from developing good practice and innovation in learning and teaching to really focusing on scholarship in the education space. So as part of that, we're launching our education focused scholarship programme, which will focus much more on developing scholarship related to education. And that will be a programme, a 4-day programme that will launch in the next year. And then we're also launching our own attempt at micro-credentials, just to be up to date with the market there. So our Scholarly Educator Award, which really what we've noticed is we've got well over 100 people now that have done our education focused professor programme. And those people attend our teaching practice conference and they want more, and they want some recognition for how they're investing in their own professional development around MKE, around management, knowledge and education. So we will be launching our silver and our gold badges, if you like, as Scholarly Educator Awards for people that have done particular number of things. So please do also look out for that to be launched in the very near future. And then the last thing I'm going to highlight, I think, now I'm a bit worried about what's on the next slide, but I think this is the last thing, is our teaching practice conference. Again, we have really, really seen this area of work generally, but including our teaching practice conference, blossom over the last few years as more and more of you decide that actually you want to focus on education in your careers rather than research. And actually, those of us that also do research realise that we need to learn and develop ourselves in teaching practice as well. So, so we've had this teaching practice conference, which has grown and grown. In order to respond to that demand, we've actually, next year, we're going to extend that and make it more of a flagship event. So it will sit beside this conference at a different time of year and become a second flagship event for the British Academy of Management. And that will be a 1.5-day conference, probably, I think, in Salford, because we hear the Dean at Salford is pretty helpful. So well, you can make that decision yourself. So look out for that as well. And lots going on. So I'm going to be quiet now. You'll be pleased to hear. If you are interested in what we're doing, I have a few minutes here to give you a flavour of the fact that we are more than just a conference, right? There's a lot of stuff going on here. I think you get that message, but please do look at our annual review, which will tell you lots more about what we've done at the last year. Look at the website, look at the virtual stand, come and talk to us, because all of you will have joined BAM either a while ago or especially for this conference. So make sure you get the best out of that membership and come and, and get involved with the community. I will be quiet now. I'm going to hand over to the Dean of Salford. We're going to hand over to our President, Katy Mason, but just to say welcome to the conference and have a fantastic few days.
Thanks so much, Emma. My privilege as President is to help us think about how we work with our sister organisations who are also trying to do good for our community. And so it's a real privilege to have many of our partners here. I can see Carmen and Kike. I know Margaret's here somewhere. Where's Margaret from IAM? There you are. Oh, and so it's and Flora, of course. So many of our learning societies and professional bodies are really working to try and think about how we act as responsible practitioners, whether that's practitioners in education, or whether that's researchers, or whether that is business and management in the real world, what we sometimes refer to. And so really thinking about how that works across, how we can pool our efforts, how we can transfer best practice is part of the work that we've been doing with our members here. And we have a meeting this evening where we will further those relationships and keep those projects going. So it's really fantastic to welcome those people here. So thank you, partners. And now I would like to hand over to Nisreen, who's going to talk about, just before we get into this conference, where we're going next year. So over to you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very pleased to welcome you all on behalf of Royal Holloway, University of London, to the British Academy of Management 2026 conference, which will be held in Egham from the 7th to the 11th of September. The theme of BAM 2026 is Thriving Together, Impact, Innovation, and Inclusion in Business and Management, which speaks directly to BAM's mission and aligns very closely with the Royal Holloway 2030 strategy, focusing on social purpose, inclusion, and impact at its heart. BAM 2026 is no ordinary conference. As I said, BAM 2026 is no ordinary conference. Next year, we celebrate the 40th anniversary of BAM, a milestone that gives us the chance to not only look back at 4 decades of scholarship, but also to look ahead at the future of management research. We are thrilled to be hosting this celebration in one of the most beautiful campuses in the UK. The iconic Founder Building will be the backdrop for a week full of inspiring discussions, new collaborations, and looking into the future of management research and scholarship. We hope your time with us next year will be enjoyable as well as remarkable. Our team has been working on this so hard actually for a few months already, and we look forward to working with the BAM team to ensure that it's a fantastic conference next year. Egham in itself, and I hope you've been there before, but if not, just to give you a kind of a background about it, it's a great location. It's about 20 minutes away from Heathrow Airport and from Windsor Castle, and it's easy access to central London as well. Therefore, you'll be able to combine both scholarship and cultural experiences, and we're hoping that we can make these experiences as great as possible. On behalf of our Executive Dean, Professor Papadopolous, and our Principal, Professor Julie Sanders, who are both very much looking forward to welcoming you next year, I'd like to sincerely thank the BAM team for trusting us with this opportunity, and we hope that we won't disappoint and will deliver a great conference next year. We can't wait to welcome you all to AGAM next September. And it's an honor to host BAM and honor its history and look into its future as well. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to welcoming you all next year.
So now we move to our second keynote panel of the conference, looking at business borders. And with our keynote speakers like to come up and our chair. And we are delighted to welcome Wendy, Bartlett, MBE from BM Caterers, Daniel Rubin, who is the, I should say, founder of BM Caterers, Daniel Rubin, who's founder and executive chair of the Dune Group, Professor Andre Spicer, who's executive dean at the Bates Business School, and Professor Elina Meliou, who's going to chair the session, who's from the University of Southampton. So I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone. And thank you, Patricia. Welcome to the British Academy of Management Conference. On behalf of the panel, I think I'm okay to say that we are all excited to be here and to share this conference with you on the important topic of business and borders. My name is Elina Meliou. I'm a professor of organization and leadership at the University of Southampton Business School, and I will moderate the conversation today. So let's begin. I will ask the panel members, maybe I will start with Andre, to introduce themselves and to tell us a few things about how you experience borders in your work, whether these are political, geographic borders, digital, organizational, or cultural.
Okay, well, thank you very much for the insights. It's lovely to be here and on such an august panel with such great colleagues. My name's Andre Spicer. I'm a professor of organisational behaviour, and I'm also a dean at Bates Business School. We used to be called Cass Business School some time ago in University of City St George's in London. A couple of points about how crossing borders has sort of impacted on my life. The first one is my own life has been one of very much crossing borders. I was born initially in New Zealand, Aotearoa, New Zealand. I then moved to Australia to do my PhD. I then came to the UK and have spent much time in the UK. But during that time have then worked with colleagues in the Nordics, in US and Canada, and many other places. So kind of that experience of working in an international scholarly community has been very, very kind of important, influential, and shaped my own life in very positive ways. The second aspect, I think, which is really interesting to kind of go back to a scholarly aspect, is crossing borders of what we do. So often we tend to think about ourselves as researchers or educators or leaders or working on impact. And in my own life, I've tried to cross across each of those different areas and bring those together in different ways, whether that's as a researcher, as an educator, as a leader, but also working on kind of impact work in a range of different ways. The final thing, and perhaps most important thing, I think, is thinking about our own industry, higher education, and how it's been shaped by its position within sort of broader, geopolitical, geoeconomic changes. Now, in many ways, if you kind of rewind about 40 or 50 years, the UK universities and UK business schools were not in a good space at all, right? This was just when Thatcher had come along. Universities were actually seen as a declining industry at this point in time. The model which that had from the post-world growth had run out of steam. We had to kind of figure out a new way of doing things, and this is what very much happened. We kind of focused on research quality. We improved research quality. We focused on a kind of a global outlook rather than a national outlook. we also came up with a sort of a new business model and a new core product, which was things like specialist masters programs, which attracted students from throughout the world, which drove research quality and helped to kind of rapidly expand UK business schools in many ways. And my own career, many of your careers have probably been shaped by that long growth, which we've seen in business schools. Now, as most of you know, that growth model is over. It's over, right? And we're currently trying to kind of work out what the new growth model might look like, what that mixture of new business, the business model might look like, how we might compete internationally with the kind of big four countries which are for attracting international students, which have been US, UK, Canada, Australia, are beginning to take a smaller share of international students, and students are often staying at home or going to other places in the world. How do we compete in that context? And 1 minute, yes. And then the question would be, let's look at what all of us have done research on, which is kind of looking at how do disrupted industries compete in the longer term. My colleague, Charles Baden-Fuller, has been studying this question for about 40 years. And his main insight, him and I were speaking about it, and we had a report which came out recently. The main insight is that when you face industry disruption, yes, you can cut costs and you can make yourself more efficient and all of that sort of stuff, but that's only going to win your time. The way in which you survive across the long term is innovation. That's the only way it's going to work. And it's not just product innovation, it's business model innovation, it's cultural innovation, and a range of other things. So I think maybe this is a question which we can ask ourselves.
Question of the geopolitical instability. So in a bit, so maybe we can move on.
Hello, hello. My name is Daniel Rubin. I'm an alumnus of Kent University, so it's great to be back here. I was here a long time ago. I was the second intake in 1966, so I've been around a long time. So I am the founder and chairman of the Dune Group. We are a fashion, footwear and accessories business. We distribute through our own stores, through department stores. A substantial amount of our business is international. 35% of our sales are international. We're a sort of medium-sized business, turnover about £150 million. But I want to go back to 1890. Because 1890, my grandfather left Russia. He was left persecution. He was actually going to America to meet his brother, but as it happened, he was tricked by the captain and he arrived in London. And he, I mean, in the 1890s, it was tough. It was very difficult. You know, he worked in a workshop. Conditions were pretty bad, but not as bad as they were in Russia. But gradually he got himself together and he formed, his father was a cobbler, and he started a shoe manufacturing business. So yeah, borders in that aspect were absolutely crucial because he was fleeing persecution. Go forward to 1975. My father was a manufacturer making ladies' shoes. And he said to me, whatever you do, Daniel, don't become a manufacturer making ladies' shoes, become a chartered accountant. And that's what I did. I became a chartered accountant. But actually, I succumbed when I was 30 years old. I succumbed and went into the business. My father wasn't very well. And for 10 years, I was a manufacturer. And what happened? Massive change. Not only in shoe manufacturing, but manufacturing moved away from the UK. Labor costs, it's a labor-intensive business. Labor costs in the UK were too high, and all the manufacturing moved mainly to China and the Far East. So that was the first big border move. I mean, the second one, I suppose. The first one was my grandfather. The second one was just closing the factory. And I guess the big lesson there, the one that I learned too slowly, was change. You know, things move. They move across borders very, very quickly. And I was going backwards and forwards to my factory in Dalston making shoes, but meantime, manufacturing was moving out of the UK. So I became an importer, and I traveled around very extensively to the Far East, to Brazil. I think I went to about 30 countries. I must have seen hundreds of factories and seen lots of different ways of working. And initially, when I went to China, I was one of the few that went. But gradually, again, borders broke down, communications improved, and people started to come direct from China to the UK. So me, as the middleman, we had a business. We were bringing in 10 million pairs of shoes. It was a big business, but our costs were too high. And gradually, again, change happened, and I left that business. And that was when, in 1992, I started Dune. As I say, Dune is very much an international business. All of our importations are from around the world, the Far East, Brazil, Europe, India. And a lot of our sales, we have shops through different sub-channels, through franchise in the Middle East, in America, in many parts of the world. So we are constantly crossing borders. And I guess the three factors that affect us are, first of all, the macro factors, those that you just can't budget. So wars, the war in Gaza, what happened? Our goods couldn't go through the Red Sea. So what did we do? We lost 3 weeks in terms of our lead times. Now, that was significant in terms of the impact, not only of our deliveries, but also in our stock holding. So wars, tariffs, things that we can't really budget for. Obviously, the pandemic, a massive impact. All our shops were closed. So borders have been super important. I mean, recently, President Trump, how do you respond to that? Very, very difficult, because one day, we were moving our production from China to Cambodia, and then he was standing up saying that the duties from Cambodia were going to be 54% or something ridiculous like that. So how do you respond to that? Very difficult. So those are the, if you like, the unbudgeted, the macro factors, but then there are the micro factors, the ones that you can budget. And that's very much around partnership, partnering with people in those countries, doing your due diligence, understanding that country, partnering with people who really know the local terrain, understand local customs, because there are huge differences in the markets, both climatic, both political, and understanding those differences is absolutely crucial to being successful. And I suppose the last border is very much an internal border. We have had offices in Hong Kong and the USA, and it's been tough. Managing people away from just in your own office is not easy. Even managing in the office, and we had a new CEO, one of our problems was we were very siloed. So, the marketing team didn't speak to the retail team. We weren't speaking to the merchandising team. So breaking down those borders within the operation is super important. And lastly, I guess it's actually even getting people out of the office. People like being in the office. They've got a lot of work to do. And actually getting the team to go out to the stores, to travel to the Middle East, to go to our stores all around the world is super, super important. Modern communications are fantastic, but there is no substitute for being there in person. So that certainly is my story, and I'm very happy now to pass on to...
Thank you. My name is Wendy Bartlett. Name's Wendy Bartlett. My journey is definitely much shorter. In fact, I live in Egham, which is where the conference will be next year. I can tell you that is the most stunning building ever, and definitely worth going to because it is a beautiful area. I started the company with a colleague, Ian Mitchell, 25 years ago with £40,000 in the back room of my house. He always said I was his daymare and he had a wife to be his nightmare. So we founded the business. We do something called contract catering, and contract catering is, say, for example, the catering that's provided today or the catering that would be provided at head office, or I've been to Marks and Spencer's just this morning, we cater there. So we are guests in other clients' businesses. We have borders in lots of different ways. We have I suppose the borders of clients. We don't have an office really. We all work virtually, always have. We're always out and out business because we have 1,200 people that work in other clients' buildings. So they're subject to their cultures as well as us influencing
the culture that Bartlett Mitchell has within the business. So that's one border, and that's really hard to work with. You have to work much harder on that. We've got lots of borders now with regard to people working back in offices. We were just discussing actually catering at Dune. They did used to have a catering offer years ago. We're seeing a very big shift in business. I think we're very good barometers in catering to see what's happening in business and industry and leadership. We're having a very strong influence on people wanting to give food away to try to encourage people back to work and to look after the wellness. We're doing a lot more business where leaders want wellness awards within their offices because they see that as a massive contribution to retaining team members and getting the creme de la creme. In fact, one of our legal companies, there's something called Rollover Friday, which is where people vote what lawyer company is best to work for, and it's all based on biscuits and offices, and it's all very technical. But you will see that one of our clients actually went right to the top of the list because they changed their catering policy. And that was quite interesting to see how that had an impact both on the fact that they get 80% of people back into the office and the fact that on that league that they did very well. So now they're one of the best companies to work for. So catering is quite a big influence in those borders. Obviously, within our industry, we employ 7 million people within the contract cater or within the catering hospitality. UK Hospitality is our governing body. We're one of the third largest employers in the industry. We're twice as large as the financial services, yet you will hear very little positive about catering. At the moment, you have 1 in 10 people not increasing prices, but 9 out of 10 places are increasing, as you will know from when you go to restaurants now. There's massive closures. Half of the job losses are now within the catering industry. So we've got massive barrier and border issues for our team, which is quite hard motivation-wise for our teams. And we employ personally in our environment, in my business, we have about 50 nationalities. Over 25% of our team are from Europe, and the majority of catering people are probably non-English speaking. I assume in retail that's probably quite similar too. So there's lots of borders that we have to challenges of how do we try to integrate into everything what we call the BM family. So I spend my life looking at barriers and borders and how we can have challenges and how we can overcome. And the one thing I would say for leadership for that would be resilience, would be my biggest tip on that.
Thank you very much. We would like to make this an engaging session. So please, if you have questions, and I can see hand there, please. Okay, I will take questions from the audience. We're supposed to have another microphone, I think. Okay, there is one question here, and then another question there. Okay, and there.
Thank you. I would like to address my question to Andrea, because I was really moved by your position of the tension between cost cutting, which is only temporary strategy, towards innovation, which is the real solution. And I couldn't agree more with this position. If we try to make a connection, though, to the reality, to your experience, to your knowledge, looking around at the British university sector, how much emphasis you think is being placed now on the cost-cutting strategy against the innovation strategy? What is your feeling about the way the industry is going nowadays?
I think the honest answer is probably a lot on cost-cutting, because it's not an easy lever to pull, but it's a lever which you can potentially pull. It takes time. And innovation is very uncertain. I think many institutions are trying it, but often it's sometimes a little bit misguided. I think we need to then think about what the underpinning business model innovation is. So it's not just product innovation, it's underpinning business model innovation. And it takes time for those things to pay off. I think some of the areas which seem to be, I guess the other point is that there's not just going to be one solution. I think that we just need to own up to the fact that there are universities are very different beasts and business schools are very different beasts. There are different kinds of business schools which are serving different missions, and they will need to innovate in different kinds of ways. So if you're, say, I don't know, an Imperial or a Cambridge, your innovation is going to look radically different than if you're, say, a regional university, or if you're a, I don't know, technical university or something like that. So I think the different models of innovation will pay off. I would be interested probably to hear from my colleagues here about when there's been big transitions in your own industries and that sort of balance between cost cutting and innovation. Any thoughts?
Yeah, it's as you say, cost cutting is easy, but it can have long-term impact on the business. If you're trying to build a brand, if you're trying to build a business, you won't deliver that by cost cutting. You deliver it by innovation, yes, but also by marketing, by looking at ways to grow your business outside of your existing markets. So I think, look, I don't know the academic world very well. My suspicion is, as a businessman, and maybe this is unfair, but things don't move quickly enough, a bit like in politics, that maybe, and it's easy to say, but I know how complex it is, but maybe people need to be braver in terms of the actions that they take, with more confidence. I do find that. I suppose there is a difference, like in businesses. You know, it's some are very innovative and quick to recognize change and move, and others are comparatively slow and too administrative and too bureaucratic. And I guess it's trying to be in the form. It's not always easy, but that's I guess what we're all trying to do, is to be innovative, to look at growth, to see how we can change our business in a positive way.
I would say, as a caterer within other businesses, so we operate within client businesses, I've definitely noticed post-pandemic where people are not so much about cost cutting, it's probably about getting more value. What people are looking for is greater value from what they're doing. So we've definitely noticed where people are looking at what their brand is, being much more long-term about where their position is, because the problem is if you cost cut, it has, as you've said, it has a big impact that maybe might suit today, but tomorrow has a bigger impact that they hadn't perhaps planned for. So I would think it's not so much about cost cutting now, it's about getting added value and greater sustainable value from your businesses in the future.
Everyone, I don't know where the second microphone is. Okay, we have another question there. Okay.
Awesome, thank you. Daniel, you talked about visiting the manufacturers, visiting the stores, and Wendy, you talked about sharing food. But I'm interested how you go about creating a strong internal culture within your organization and shared values when you're dealing with so many barriers and so many borders that you need to cross.
Yeah, I think there are lots of different ways. I mean, clearly building the right team and building the right culture within the business is absolutely crucial. I guess I'm an entrepreneur. I've started the business, and so, but also it's not a family-owned business, but I own the business. So I guess those cultures of family, of entrepreneurship, of giving people responsibility are absolutely crucial. And I guess those are the sort of people we look for when we employ people. So naturally, you know, when they go out, we want them to very much go out with a very clear understanding of our values. You know, we have a number of values. I mean, we're based in London. We're a very diverse business, lots of different people. So yeah, understanding that and building that is super important, because, you know, as we know, it's all about the team, and it's trying to get them to focus on what are the key strategies of the business, but doing it in a way which is consistent with the values of the company.
Time to the question. Thank you very much. In this time of day of diversity, equity, and inclusion backlash and the growing political polarization, how do you foster collaboration and inclusion? What actions do you take? And obviously within the offices here, but also your international offices?
Yeah, I think the important thing is consistency. I think, people may change in terms of how they view these things, but in the end, you need to be consistent about what you feel is right for your company. And to be honest, I'm not hugely affected by what governments say or what people say. You need to have your own beliefs, and you need to be consistent with those, and you need to be transparent in how they're operated. So yes, the debate is about, maybe, and influenced obviously from Trump but I think it's really important not to listen to a lot of that, not to move around, to say, look, these are our values. This is what we believe. We're going to stick with that. If you have those values, which are diversity, which is inclusion, they are immutable. You shouldn't be changing those just because there is a change in shifts in the way people or governments are thinking. So that's very much our view. And certainly that's what I've tried to do over the 50 years, I guess, actually too long, 50 years that I've been in business.
So maybe I can just add a little bit onto this. My own school has had this story of being true to one's values. So during the pandemic, there was the Black Lives Matter movement, and there was a news story which appeared in the BBC saying the Edward Colston statue has just been pulled down, but what about the other statues of slave owners in the city of London? And I looked at it, and one of them was Sir John Cass, which my school was named after. I had no idea that this guy was not just a slave owner, but he was the governor of the biggest slave trading organization enterprise in human history, which was the Royal Africa Company. The board of my university decided to drop the name Cass, which we've been investing in for 20 years. A lot of people knew Cass. It had a lot of brand equity, et cetera, et cetera. And then we had to rebuild a brand from the ground up. It's an incredibly costly decision, which would have cost at least, it's been at least 5-10 million in actually just the brand building and, those kind of reparation sort of aspects, but probably more in brand equity, I would say. So the point is that being true to your values can cost, but I think being true to your values has enabled us to sort of create new bridgeheads, innovate, and think about ourselves in a kind of different way. It's a long journey, but I think sometimes you need to live your values, I guess.
Yeah, I would actually agree with David. The thing about is life is simple and you can overcomplicate it. In leadership, you've got to be really clear what you're doing and understand as a leader, you impact everything that happens within your business. So it will be whatever your values are will be influenced. So David's family's values would have permeated straight through that as it has with our company. And I think it's best not to keep changing fashionably because people do want consistency. And I think that gives the successes where you're very clear about your leadership, you're very clear about your brand, you're very clear about what you want, and adapt and innovate and do all those things. But you can't do innovation if you keep changing your mind every 5 minutes. So you have to be very clear about what you're doing as a leader.
Okay.
Well, thank you for a very interesting and timely panel. I wonder if I can ask you to reflect on the border between relevance in business schools and management education on the one hand and rigor on the other hand. You know, it's an old tension. On the one hand, academics in business schools try to conduct very rigorous research to impress the journal editors and the referees so that it'll get published in the big journals. And on the other hand, there are pressures from employers and the wider society for people in business schools to be relevant to the interests and have impact in the wider society. So any reflections, Andre and also Wendy and Daniel? I'm Greg Bamber, coming from Monash Business School in Australia, and this is a big issue and debate in Australia, but I hear it also in the UK and other countries' business schools as well. Thank you.
So, good question, Greg. So I guess I would sort of argue that we've sort of seen a couple of waves, 2 waves at least of business schools, but I think we're moving into a 3rd wave. The first wave was very much show them how you do it. So people who are experienced business people would often come into business schools and show how it's been done. We then had a kind of 2nd wave post-World War II, which was let's increase the rigor. So let's try and look like the natural sciences, have these journals and so on. I would argue that that's probably gone a little bit too far now. So the review times in your field, so my field, for instance, organizational behavior, is the longest of any scientific field. It takes, I think, it's like 3 times the amount of time for a piece of science to come out in our fields than it does in, say, most of the natural sciences, which is really crazy. So I think we're kind of moving towards a 3rd stage, which is really a focus on this question about relevance, impact. You might talk about solving either grand challenges or local challenges. So the focus of business schools now should be about thinking about what you're doing and your education, your research, and your kind of engagement or impact work to kind of a triple mission, I think. How does that help solve either the big challenges or local challenges? It'd be interesting to hear about your thoughts about how you might engage with universities and business schools, effort or...
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I'm not an expert in rigor in academia. But I suppose the relevance I have and the engagement I have with universities through something called the business startup journey, and that's very much trying to get entrepreneurs interested in in business. I think interesting. I think I came here about 25 years ago, and it was a careers fair, and I was a sort of fashion entrepreneur. I had a table with fashion entrepreneur, and next to me was marketing, and the other side was finance. And I don't think I saw a single person because everybody at that stage was interested in going into banking or into marketing. Now that's changed dramatically. And what I find is, we have a tremendous, and actually Arto, who runs this course, has a tremendous enthusiasm for people who want to start their own business. And I think there is, from my perspective, that's really important because we do want to build budding entrepreneurs. And I know, obviously, academic research is super important, but also getting people who understand the rigors of going into business, the challenges of going into business, how to prepare a business plan. These are quite fundamental things. And I think there is a danger sometimes, and it's that balance, isn't it, between academic research, but also being practical and preparing students for the outside world. And I guess that's very much been the area that I've been involved with, trying to get students to really understand what are, and getting students to come and have experience, work experience. I think it's super important so that when they go into the outside world, it's not, they do have some tools, if you like, to manage it more effectively.
I don't have a lot of experience with academia regarding business. My only experience wasn't great. I went to do something and a lecturer had 39 slides with God knows how much on it. And we're very much more doers, especially because we're caterers. We're very practical, we're very active, we're very task orientated. You have to be, lunch has to be out at 12. There's a million different problems and issues every single day to make sure that lunch is out in time. In fact, catering is one of the best things for students, I always think, to go into, because it teaches you time management, working with the team, getting through resilience of all the problems that you have. So I think for me, it's about, yes, you need to talk about it, you need to research it, you need to have a lot of information. But at the end of the day, why did we end up going into business and starting companies and others didn't? There's a very fine line, and that going from thinking about it to doing it is quite big step, but it's not a big step really. I had no idea what I was going to do when I left school, but that is a big step to start your own company. But that is about the fact you're prepared to do it, not talk about it. That's the difference.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think we have another question.
Hello.
We have a few questions.
This way.
Yes.
Yep. My question is directly to Professor Andre. As he specifically mentioned, Andre, this side. Because he specifically mentioned about he has crossed multiple types of border. Managing political borders, managing geographical borders is still manageable. But the challenge is psychological borders. How to break the border to being mediocre? Next part of the question is pain of almost everyone from this room. How to cross the border from C to B or B to A or A to A star? That's very specific to academician. But other panelists can comment on the psychological aspect of this. Thank you.
Okay. So, I mean, that's a big question. It takes a long time to answer. And as most of the colleagues in business would point out, the only way in which you learn how to become excellent in a particular business is through day-to-day practices of how do you get things out on time, how do you design great shoes and market them correctly. Those things you can't describe. You have to actually watch and experience and work over time. My business school, I think we did go from kind of B to A over a period of about 10 or 15 years. One of the simple recipes for that was each time you hire someone, you should hire them marginally better than yourself or the other people. So slowly leveling up practice. I think also learning from the best and from others. And having this kind of collective learning approach rather than just individual competition. So I saw within my school, it was very much a collective learning process where you learn from others, you learn from other industries and other institutions was important in terms of that leveling up. One side point I'd just like to make, actually, no, let's ask, how do you build your excellence in your own businesses?
I think something that is pretty mundane but super important is hard work. You know, I wasn't a great student, but I worked pretty hard, and you have to if you want to succeed in business. I'm sure Wendy will go ahead with that. You know, you have to make sacrifices. You have to travel. You have to work long hours. So I think to make that, for me, not being a particularly great student, and actually being more interested in sport and study, making that step is very much around application. Of course, you need to make sure that what you're working hard at has a future. You know, I was working very hard at a shoe factory, going there every day, working for 12 hours, was a waste of time because in the end, it was going to move out to other countries. So you need to have a clear vision, and that vision needs to be sustainable. But once you've got that vision, for me to make that step from C to B to A is very much about application and hard work and getting advice from the right people. You know, I think that's hugely underrated. You know, there are so many people that are willing, mentors that are willing to give advice, that we don't always take advantage of that. And I think working hard, getting the right advice, not working in isolation. And actually that is a challenge today. You know, I think people are working in isolation. So I think getting out, networking like today, meeting people, getting different ideas, I think those are super important aspects of really improving your own performance and getting from, as you say, C to A.
I always think there's a really great example of excellence in the practice of excellence. There's a lady called Claire Smythe. She runs a 3-star Michelin, and I have a chef that works with us called Adam Byer, who is a Michelin star chef. But if you go to, I'm lucky enough, obviously I've got a great job. All I have to do is eat food and drink. It's a marvelous job. If you go to Core, her restaurant, you will see Claire Smythe at it's called the Pass, which is the bit between the kitchen and the diners. And she will look at a dish as it comes off that plate, and she will look at it as if it's the first time she's ever looked at it. She is a great example of excellence. And I always cite her as someone who, no matter what, will make sure that everything is perfect. You've got to have that almost obsession, and you've got to be thinking and focused on it completely. Our tagline is fundamentally food. Any decisions I make are all about how does that impact the food? How does that make our team interested in the food? How can we make the food better? And I think, as I was saying before, you can easily get sidelined by lots of things within your business. But if you want to have great food, and I think, you know, when you look at the chefs, when they produce great food, they're obsessive about it. And in some ways, you do have to be obsessive because you have to keep well focused, because you will get diverted by every single thing in your life to try and get, and it is hard work. There is no getting away from that.
Yeah. Cultures of excellence ourselves in the business school, so it's good to see what happens in other industries. I don't know how much time we have left. I would like to ask your take on a very topical issue, which is actually AI. So what do you think AI has dissolved traditional borders, or what new borders has AI created? And how do you engage with AI in your organizations? I'll start with
it's on a very practical. Ours is on a very practical level. So AI is very evident in what we do. We are a very manual business, chefs, all that sort of thing. Today I was actually somewhere this morning, and now you can put your plate of food under a camera. It will tell you how much it costs, your calorie, your nutritics, all of that. So that's all done by AI. But what is very funny about that is that, yeah, it's all great, but what happens is people put their protein under the pile of vegetables and the potatoes. Camera sees the potato and the vegetables, and they get away without charging the protein. So AI is great and it has a place, but it changes constantly. It is a really big problem for us, but it also has to have a really practical application. So it's only as good as what it sees, and human interaction. A cashier would say, have you got something else under there possibly? And would ask that question. So I thought that was a very good example today of AI.
We use AI mainly on customer service, but we use it to try and personalize the experience for customers. So the more data, it's all about data. If you don't have the data, it's very difficult to use AI effectively. But if you have the data on customers, and we built that up, you can make the transaction, the engagement that the customer has with your brand much more interesting. And much more relevant, because you are showing them products which they have an interest in, and they've expressed an interest. But I think there is a danger, though. I think, you know, AI, I mean, you know, we've all been on the phone and a bot answers, and you know, you try and answer the question, but they can't answer the question. So, you know, you spend a lot of time, and then eventually, hopefully, at some stage, there's human intervention and someone answers your question. So I think there is a danger that we rely on it too much. I think, as you say, having that human intervention, it's a co-pilot. So, you know, you need the pilot to actually run it. And if the co-pilot doesn't know the answer, you need someone around who can. And I think there's a danger now, especially with large organizations, where we're just wasting a huge amount of time trying to get through. And the borders are there because the borders are created by this bot, by AI. So I think it's a fantastically valuable tool, but I think we just need to use it in the right way. And as you say, Wendy, have the right sort of manual or person intervention when it doesn't work.
So I'd concur with my fellow panelists that, I mean, we're sort of using AI in a range of different ways. So one is the co-pilot for, so for instance, I helped to design a large first year course on critical thinking, where we work in small groups with over 600 students to try and increase their kind of critical thinking skills. Now, often they go away and they think, oh, what does inductive reasoning mean? What does this logical fallacy mean? And you can spend your time kind of explaining to them, but we've then used kind of a sort of a co-pilot mechanism where they can kind of run queries and, check and all that sort of stuff. And it's like it's an addition to a tutor in some ways. So that's useful in education. In research, we've got an institute which looks at AI and creativity and other kind of things around that. So how, for instance, they've done work looking at how FA Cup coaches in the English Premier League can use AI to come up with new ideas for coaching strategies. Often the players will get bored with the coaching strategies. How do they generate new ideas? So that's useful. And even in administrative processes in universities, as you know, they're very complicated, lots of human interactions involved. There's some ways those things could be automated. But the interesting thing is that often people are doing it under the desk in large organizations using AI things. You probably all use AI in different kinds of ways where you're not supposed to do it. But there's sort of interesting ways of automating it. The two final things I'll add is that there's many, and to concur with Daniel, is that there's only few aspects of jobs which can be automated. So my colleague Fang Li, who's known to some of you, he went through radiologists as a job and tried to identify the components which were automatable as a radiologist. Often when you speak with AI researchers, they say radiology is the classic job that can be automated. Actually, radiology involves about 40 different tasks, and only about 5 of those can be automated by AI, which is sort of interesting. And then the final thing I'd add, and I think, again, to concur with Daniel, is that there's a danger that AI kind of adds a lot of kind of bot sludge, you might call. So sludge are things which make processes difficult in organizations. And when you automate the process, it can make it even more difficult to get through to talk with someone, to fill in forms and so on. So there's this danger that it actually might make our work even more difficult. And we humans end up sort of dealing with a lot of this bot sludge rather than actually doing the core value creating work, which is, designing and marketing shoes, or creating the food, which you might do, or teaching and doing research and impact work, which you might do. So we might need to be a bit guarded about it.
We have a related question from someone who is online, and I'm going to read the question, which asks: technology advancement claims trust may no longer be needed if transparency is live streamed or embedded in code. Is there a role for management research in putting the human experimenting, risk-taking, and trust-building back in the center? Read it again.
Maybe in some ways that the center point is that, so if you think about, say, stars and rankings and ratings, so your stores probably all have a Google rating and stars and all that sort of stuff, and so the idea is that you don't trust the brand, you trust the stars on the Google review. Do you think that's true or not?
I think people are hugely influenced by stars. I'm afraid. When I look at a television program, it's got 5 stars, I'm more than likely to. So I think, people are influenced because they want endorsement, they want recommendation, they want people to feel confident that what they're doing is right. So yes, and I think it's hugely important. You get tremendous feedback as well through these through different reviews. So I guess the answer is, although I'm not sure I totally understood the question, but I think the answer is, we do need these tools to try and validate, if you like, some of the actions that we're going to be taking, or the places we go to eat, or where we go to shop, or where we go on holiday. Yeah.
Obviously, we're in the catering industry. We're measured in lots of different ways. but the Michelin star system is one way, or that the hygiene rating. So they have their position, but at the end of the day, it's something you aspire to and can be measured against. And I think they have the, particularly Google. I suspect most of you, if you're going to a restaurant, will check on Google or TripAdvisor where it is. But then you also look through the reviews and feel whether they're responsible or not. The difference is you have to be good at your job, and you have to do a great job in order to get those rewards of having the higher rating. We do Glassdoor, for example. We will measure ourselves on that as an employer, and Indeed. So there's a number of ways that you get measured. But if you're doing a good job, then you should get good scores anyway. You'll get the odd bad one, but you know, in general, you will get good scores. So I think it's about getting those foundations right. So don't do it in order to get your 5 stars on Glassdoor. Do it that you're a great employee and people like you. So I think you need to look at it from that basis. And the star system is just, it's. Is it stress or?
Trust.
Trust. Yeah, it builds trust, but I think people make their own mind up too. So if you're going to be good at what you do, then you will have the trust because that's one of your values. But if you're deceitful and you're building a brand that isn't true, it will come out. Life is about karma, and it will come out in the end. It is very much about karma. And that it will come out in the end. So if you build a distrustful business, your team eventually won't trust you. It will, I always think, it will unravel. The most important thing as a leader, I think, and you know, Daniel also is a testament to that, is what you do is what you say, and you keep to it. And if you don't, you will be found out.
So there's two kind of interesting search opportunities on this ranking and ratings. I think one is rankings overload. So in certain industries, there's so many different rankings and stars and all that sort of stuff, and it's sometimes can distract leaders, but it also can distract customers. So that's one. The second one I just noticed, I was back in Australia, and you get this review bothering. It's like you have a meal and suddenly, can you give us a review? Here's this thing, and it suddenly kind of reduces your nice experience. Suddenly gets destroyed. I don't know. It'd be an interesting research project to look at.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions from the audience here? Okay. I'll pass you on this and then.
I'm Fred from Germany. My question to you is, in order to stay more resilient and more competitive, how much of your time and budget do you already spend in creating higher value together with other firms? So crossing your own organizational borders and creating the bigger value together with others. The key word is business ecosystems.
Yeah, to me. So let me understand the question correctly. Maybe.
So one way of thinking about it is how much time do you spend collaborating or working with other firms, and what percentage of your attention or networking, what percentage of your attention or budget would you spend on that?
Personally, I don't spend enough time on that. But I think it is, as I said before, really important that you know, for us, who is the king? The customers are the king. So the more we communicate with the customer and understand what the customer likes or doesn't like about what you're doing, that is super important. You know, for us, the border between the customer, the person who's serving in the shop, and the people at head office is an incredibly important border. Because unless you get that feedback from the customer, and who's dealing with the customer most directly, it's those store associates. So you need to have that very transparent and easy flow of information so that you're listening to what the customer's telling you. Most businesses that have problems don't listen to their customers enough. So I think in those terms, for us, the customer is the most important person to listen to. And the customer can be in different forms. You know, a lot of our business now is partnerships. You know, we partner with Next, with Marks and Spencer's, with John Lewis. Listening to them, also super important. You know, you can't today in business be shielded and just work in with your own team in your own office. You need to get out there. You need to listen to other people. And that's super important. Without that, I think you're missing a great deal. And it's very difficult, I think, to be successful unless you do listen to those people.
I just have one question. I'm curious. What is the biggest trends in your retailing thing? Surprising trends that you've seen in the last year and in catering?
The biggest trend is really the whole casualization, the comfort. You know, people during the pandemic were wearing trainers, and they still wear trainers. You know, it's that's our. Even I'm wearing trainers, but they are Dune trainers. So please, if you need trainers, go to Dune, and you know you'll get a really good deal on some trainers. But yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, is this whole trend towards casualization, towards comfort. People are now not prepared to wear uncomfortable shoes. You know, that's why Skechers do so well. That's why those sort of brands do so well, because they have managed to combine both a very economical and high quality product with those comfort features. And I think that is going to continue. So for us, I mean, that is a big challenge, because our history is all around fashion shoes, and fashion shoes are not comfortable. And so, or usually not comfortable. Our challenge is to try and make them comfortable. You know, how can you increase the flexibility? How can you increase the padding in the socks so that when you wear them, you want to wear them? So for us, I think that's been the biggest trend that we've seen over the last few years, and it's been accelerated, obviously, during the pandemic, where people were only wearing slippers or trainers. They weren't wearing many high-heeled shoes.
In our industry, I'm glad to hear about the comfortable shoes, by the way. And the trend in our world, in contract catering, it's about wellness. People want to look after their employees much more. I think there's been a definite shift and a definite awakeness to yes, we should look after the people who work for us, because it's hard to get them and to keep them. And also the lack of collaboration in offices has had an impact on businesses. So they need to get people back in face-to-face collaboration in the main. The second thing, in the catering industry, the overall industry, the government isn't supportive of it at all, has absolutely crucified it, especially since the last budget. And that is a really big problem. So now either you have to have a trend, the trend will be, it'll either be cheap and cheerful and volume, or you'll be paying more for experiences and value, because you're the middle market, which is why most of your restaurants will close on the high street, is unless you get great value and a great experience, and you want more from your restaurant experiences in the future, and more authenticity from the food you're buying, etc., etc. That's where the trend's going on that front.
Thank you.
Few more minutes.
The last one.
Last question.
Thank you. I will be quick. Yeah, Professor Spicer has begun talking about accommodating international students in the universities and the labor market. But with the emergence of the kind of challenges because of the optimal numbers have reached both in the universities as well as in the labor market of particularly in the US, UK, to go further in that direction, accommodating more students. What is the background talks or policy talks that's happening, strategic talks that's happening within the universities and in the labor market, that the cross-border movement of institutions, is that time is really coming, so that to deliver the international education at the doorstep of the clients, rather than inviting international students here and moving out the institutions further to the where the market is.
Thank you. I would like to just broaden a bit the question and just add how you have shifted, how your strategies have shifted, given the ongoing geopolitical instability, more broadly to foster collaboration, to enhance trust, to gain back your customers.
Okay, so specifically related to universities and business schools. So one way of sort of putting your question is, are universities increasingly sort of trying to, instead of operating just in the UK and people will come here, you kind of partner and run, international operations? That's what one strategy some universities are pursuing. There's an interesting question that many vice chancellors would put is, how many of these international operations actually make money? And the answer is probably less than 20%, right? So a lot of them are based on hope or based on desperation or based on good deals which come or ego or those kind of things. So often international operations, from a UK university perspective, there's making that model work can be challenging. And I'm speaking from the perspective of someone who did have an international operation and we've recently shuttered that. Second point is that you're totally right that if you flip the perspective and say, okay, forget about the UK, let's look at the perspective of India or China or whatever, they want to develop campuses and keep knowledge there. And that makes total sense from the perspective of those economies of developing more, say in India, there's this huge number of people who need to be educated, lack of places, need for higher quality institutions, all of that sort of stuff. So there's a really interesting opportunity, but marrying those two things, I think, is a really, really interesting kind of organizational and leadership challenge, which I think some of you probably are involved in, and that challenge is being replicated across other places.
Yeah, we are a UK brand, and our growth opportunity is international. We want to be a global brand. It's an ambition, but that's our opportunity, because the UK market, unfortunately, is pretty stagnant, and we don't see a lot of growth over the next, despite what Rachel Reeves may say, we don't see a lot of growth coming over the next sort of 2 years or so. So our opportunity is international, and international is challenging, depending on the market, but there are so many factors that you need to look into in terms of the market, whether it's right for your product, how you need to adjust your product to be suitable for that market. You need to look at the climatic factors. They don't sell boots in the winter like us. You need to look at the political factors. We have partners in Pakistan and Nigeria, but they can't pay us because there are currency controls. So there are a myriad of challenges when you go into international markets. And if you go into an international market with a partner and it's wrong, the costs of extricating yourself from that situation is usually very, very expensive, because you've invested a lot of time and effort. So for us, the key is due diligence. We need to look at the markets. For us, the important markets are the ones with scale, because it's very difficult for us to adjust product for a small market. We don't have the critical mass to justify that. So yes, international markets are hugely important, but they are affected by what's happening. Brexit, we're selling in Europe about the same size as the States, but for us, selling in the States is much, much easier, because it's one market, it's much more homogeneous. The number of different languages, complications of dealing with the Europe, the way that different countries have reacted to Brexit has been different, the bureaucratic challenges. So for us, it's an exciting challenge, but it's one that is marred with all sorts of obstacles. And for us, the challenge is to try and navigate those obstacles so that we can actually get those international relationships established in a smooth and well-working way.
Okay, so any more questions? If not, okay, one last question. No, 5 minutes. Yeah.
Rubin, so you talked about starting our own business, but like I am coming from India. I've lived there my whole life, but in the recent years, there have been some changes in the cultural perspective of people being things like Making India campaign being run by the government. And just like India, there have been other countries where there have been other national factors which are encouraging countries to be more self-sufficient. So how can that impact the sustainability that you have talked about? Because isn't that a negative factor for sustainability of businesses in general at an international perspective?
Okay, so you're right. There seems to be rising that sort of focus on national economies and nationalism within particular large blocks. So India, as an example, China, you'd argue UK, US, definitely happening. But the interesting thing is that the rhetoric does not actually match the data. So there's a big group called Capital Economics. The head economist from them is coming up with a book. It was actually on the FT Economics podcast last week. And I looked into this when we had a bunch of global ship owners into bays recently talking about deglobalization. There's a lot of talk about deglobalization, but actually global trade flows are pretty much still very, very high. There's been a lot of disruption recently with this, the Cambodia move out of China, where should you go now, those kind of things. But still global trade flows, when you talk with shippers, are still very high. And the same thing with global transactions, financial transactions, still very high. Global movement of people, still very high. We might be at an inflection point where it comes down a little bit or changes. And many geopolitical commentators would say it might change into a few blocks. So you might get a kind of Anglosphere block. You might get a kind of a China-based block. You might get a kind of blocks outside of those things. But the question is that we still, despite all the talk about nationalism, we still live in a hyper-globalized world.
We do, but we have about a dozen shops in India, and we're a fashion brand. And the Indian government now have introduced the BIS, which means that you have to get approval for a factory, and that is a bureaucratic nightmare, because you've got to jump through enormous amount of hoops to actually get approval. They've got to visit the factory, they've got to approve it. And for us, it's a big question, because India's a huge market, it's potentially a massive market, but they cannot make the product that we want in India. They're very good on casual. We might buy a lot of boots from there, but they don't make a lot of what we sell. And that is a big problem. So what do we do? And I've been having this conversation with our team. Do we try and overcome these bureaucratic problems? Do we walk away from the market? Do we try and get a compromise? It's a real problem. And I think in the end, you've got to be realistic and say, is it worth the effort? Sometimes you jump through hoops, you do everything you think you need to do, and it still doesn't work. And you think, why did I waste all that time? So I think sometimes you just got to look at the market, look at the size of the market. As I say, scale for us is super important. 12 shops is very difficult to cater for. So you've got to look at the market and say, is this worth the effort to try and overcome all these obstacles that are being placed in my way? And I think it's a difficult decision, but I think, you've got to do that really careful, honest analysis before you can come to a final decision.
This is the end of our panel conversation. Thank you very much. Everyone here, thank you very much the panel members for sharing their insights, and I wish everyone an excellent conference.
Okay, everybody. Thank you. Thank you, Tara. So this is a really important part about what our community does that's happening next. This is about recognizing your contributions to our community. And then afterwards we have lunch, and that will give you the opportunity, especially as many people come to the BAM conference, to be part of our community and to network, to see the people that actually made the community what it is, and to chat with them and to say hello. So we really appreciate your attention and time. So the very first thing we're going to do is welcome our new BAM fellows. So very pleased to welcome Professor Fiona Wilson, who is the Dean of our Fellows College. One person at a time.
We award fellowships of the British Academy of Management to recognise academics who have a strong international profile of high quality research and who have made a significant contribution to the vitality of BAM. Awards follow a process of nomination and scrutiny and election by the college. Fellowship is not just a recognition of excellence, it's an invitation to contribute further to the work of BAM by promoting the highest calibre of UK research in management and business on a global stage, progressing research-led teaching and ensuring the highest standards in all areas of management education. This year, we're delighted to welcome 4 new fellows to our college. Katy's going to announce our new fellows while I present their award and welcome them to our college.
So if our fellows please come forward, we're really delighted to present fellowships to Professor Rachel Mackman. Professor Zahir Khan.
We should and have a break.
Professor Jia Liu. Professor Raphael Marcellus. We also have companionships in recognition of outstanding contribution to the field of business and management, celebrating those who have led and positively impacted business and management practice. And it's a real pleasure to make these awards to Dr. Margaret Heffernan, President. Margaret is currently president of the Irish Academy of Management and a really long-time collaborator with us, so we're really delighted, Margaret. And another very long-time collaborator with us through the Chartered Association of Business Schools, Flora Hamilton. So really. So we have 2 really prestigious and I guess difficult to earn awards that we're going to present next. And these are really, really significant awards. Our first is the Richard Witt Achievement, Lifetime Achievement Award. The Richard Whip Lifetime Achievement Award is made annually in memory of Professor Richard Whip. Richard was an outstanding scholar and former chair of the British Academy of Management. And this prestigious award acknowledges contributions to our field and our learned community over, as the name suggests, a lifetime. The recipients have enhanced their field of study and have effectively led a major national or international academic initiative. And they've provided extraordinary service to either a major professional institution or higher education and, of course, our beloved academy. And so I'm really pleased to invite Richard Whip's wife, Anne, to present this award, and to our prestigious recipient, Gerard. Professor. Would you like to stay there a minute, George? That's why we tell people why you're so amazing. So Professor Gerard Hodgkinson has is globally renowned for the research insights and contributions he's generated at the juncture of psychology and strategic management. His work is really well known to those working in occupational and organisational psychology, but also he's had a major influence in an emerging interdisciplinary field, which we tend to refer to as behavioural strategy. I hope that's okay, Gerald. I know how sensitive these things are. Not only that, but he's been really important in the BAM community. He's been editor-in-chief of our flagship journal, British Journal of Management. He's a former member of BAM Executive and Council, and that body's changed its name over the time that you've been involved with BAM. You've also been leading in the publications and research, and you've done so much to leverage the quality of research in our community, but not least in the UK, where there was a major initiative to do that some years ago. Also, yesterday, I had the pleasure of presenting the Tony Beatley Award to the Best Doctoral Paper, and Gerard was the founding chair for that award, so you do go back a long way with us, right to the beginning. You've also had a major influence on our Fellows College and your leadership work there too, so really absolutely amazing. But most importantly, Gerald has spent his life in pursuit of research excellence and the development and delivery of impactful research across our community. And for that, for your life's work, we thank you. So for our 30th anniversary, and I can't believe it's our 40th just around the corner, we developed a portfolio of medals to recognise all the different kinds of activity that go across, that have been going on across the British Academy of Management. And the first medal I want to present today is the Medal for Equality, Diversity, Inclusivity and Respect. This medal is awarded to those who have achieved outstanding leadership and contributions towards improving EDIR, the shorter way of saying the same thing, within and beyond the BAM community. And it's a real pleasure this year to make that award to Martina Slua, Professor of Management and Organisation. There we go. We know Martina too well, we can't just take her. There we go, that's yours, Martina. So, just to say a little bit about Martina's work, Martina has done amazing things in actually being the first vice chair of EDIR at the British Academy of Management. She co-created the All Welcome Guide with colleagues that she worked really closely with. Her own research has also had an impact on the field, looking at EDIR in business schools across the UK. So it's really fantastic to see this all going to Martina. Very well done. Okay, so our next medal is our leadership medal, and that's going to be presented by Emma. We're swapping. We're swapping. Teamwork, you see, that's what you have between the president and the chair.
Right, thank you very much, Katy. So we're going to move on to present the rest of our medals here. So the BAM Medal for Leadership, can we swap the slide, please? Thank you. The BAM Medal for Leadership is awarded for sustained and outstanding leadership of and contribution to the academic community by a BAM member, or in this case, a long-term friend of BAM, I think it would be fair to say. So this year, I'm really, really proud and delighted to award this to Professor Carmen Cabello Medina. Not too far away from you, Carmen. So we're really, really pleased to give this medal to Carmen. Katy talked earlier about our international friends and sister organisations. Carmen was nominated for her sustained and outstanding leadership in her earlier role as president of our sister organisation in Spain, ACEDE, and specifically for her pivotal role in connecting the BAM and ACEDE communities. We have a thriving partnership, I think we can say, and relationship that we're really happy about. And it's fantastic to say thank you to Carmen in this way today. Thank you, Carmen. Right, so our BAM Medal for Knowledge Development is awarded for sustained outstanding contribution to the development and dissemination of management knowledge by a British Academy of Management member. This year we've actually got two recipients. The first of those is Professor Petra Moulton-Hill, who can't make it, but those of you that were on the virtual day on Monday will have seen me present that award virtually, so congratulations again to Petra. Today, I'm delighted again to present the BAM Medal for Knowledge Development to another fantastic contributor to the BAM community, Dr. Fariba Darabi. Thank you. So Fariba was nominated, and I have to work your laptop, Katy, which is to this. See, when in doubt. Fariba was nominated for her sustained contribution that she's made in disseminating knowledge within the British Academy of Management. This includes particularly the support and advocacy that she's provided to the doctoral community, and many of you that have come up as doctoral researchers within BAM will be familiar with that support, but also the role that she's played in our management knowledge and education focused professor programme over several years. So thank you again to Fariba. Okay, right, the next award is our BAM Medal for Contribution to Communities. And this is an award that we awarded for the first time last year, actually. It was a new one because we wanted to recognise those people, regardless of the level of their careers or the way in which they do this, that make a contribution to the community of BAM, perhaps to a special interest group or to a network in an outstanding and sustained way. And really set an example of leadership that reflects our values within the British Academy of Management. This year, and I think a reflection of perhaps that is a new award, so we have a kind of backlog of people that deserve recognition in this way, but also because a recognition of the fantastic people that we have in the community, we are presenting this to three people. So let me do this one by one. I guess it's not in the script, but I'll do it one by one. So first of all, Professor Christian Harrison, and you're as well. We're very happy in BAM this morning. Thank you. So Christian was nominated for his leadership of the Leadership Special Interest Group and his role as co-founder of the BAM African Studies track. He's also previously supported the Management Knowledge and Education Subcommittee on Council,
and co-led on the Management Knowledge and Education Teaching Practice Conference for several years. So a massive contribution there, and I know that your contribution is going to increase in the next few months as well. So thank you very much for that, Christian. So the second award, the second medal for contribution to communities goes to Kingsley Omahi. I hope you'll manage not to be sitting on the floor anymore like you were a moment ago. Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations, Kingsley. So Kingsley was nominated. Kingsley was nominated for being a highly supported advocate for doctoral students, including running several events for the doctoral community through the Leadership and Leadership Development Special Interest Group. He's also been a champion for African scholars and co-founded with Christian, presumably, the BAM African Studies track, as well as being vice chair and treasurer for the Leadership Special Interest Group. Our third award for this is to Kevin Tennant, who unfortunately can't be with us today. So we would like to congratulate Kevin, and I will just read the reasons for his nomination. So Kevin was nominated for being an outstanding leader in his field and for contributing to BAM communities by reinvigorating the Management and Business History Special Interest Group as track chair from 2011 to 2017, and then SIG chair from 2016 to 2023. And those of you involved in that track will know that that's now a thriving and very active special interest group. So great job, Kevin, thank you. Through more than 10 years of service and leadership in BAM, he ensured that there's growing interest from business and management historians in joining our BAM community and joining the BAM conference, and raise the profile of the SIG within the wider business and history community. So we'd like to say thank you and congratulations to Kevin at this point. Okay, and one more medal to go before we move on to our final award, and this is the BAM Medal for Research. Just checking where our awardee is. There she is. So the BAM Medal for Research is awarded, as you might expect, for sustained original contributions to management research by a BAM member. This year, we're really proud and really happy to award this medal to Catherine Wang from Brunel University. Thank you. Congratulations, Catherine. So Catherine was nominated for her contributions to BAM and the wider community, particularly in research, including her sustained contribution to research on the role of knowledge and learning in strategic decision-making, entrepreneurial endeavours and innovative outcomes. Congratulations again, Catherine. And that's back to the final award.
So our final award is the John Burgoyne Memorial Prize for Management Learning. And Trudy is here, John's widow, to present this prize. So the John Burgoyne Memorial Prize celebrates those making significant and sustained contribution to the field of management learning. And it is given to people nominated, and in this case, it was a unanimous agreement by the awards committee for those who've made a significant contribution to management learning. And it's my absolute pleasure to welcome Professor Paul Hibbett, Professor of Management at the University.
You can. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Brilliant. What do you like to say?
So Paul receives this award in recognition of his contribution to research and practice, and I think that's what's really unique and interesting about Paul. He's really shaped in a fundamental way our understanding of management learning through reflexivity. So we're actually thinking about what we're doing and changing what we're doing based on what we're learning about ourselves. And if we're not here to do that at this conference, then what are we here for? Paul's looked at this in all sorts of different settings, not only in his own leadership roles in universities, but also in his role of studying interdisciplinary and collaborative research, and also looking in commercial settings as well. Paul's also held, I don't know what else he does in his spare time, but he's also had editorial roles that have been directly concerned with management learning, including in the journal, the British, sorry, I've made a mistake in how we name our own flagship journals. The British Journal of Management, but also the Academy of Management Learning and Education. So really significant roles. And also, he's really thought about how we guide practice. So his support and guidance of early career researchers has been really amazing. And we're really absolutely delighted, Paul, to recognise your work in this area. So fantastic. Congratulations. So I'm now going to hand over to Kate. Can I see Kate? And Ashley to talk about the MKE Awards. I forgot. It's the birthday.
Thank you, Katy, and hello, everybody. So the BAM Education Practice Awards date back to 2016. And back in 2016, they were designed to recognise individual and team initiatives that enhance management knowledge and education. Every year, this is an open competition for everybody within BAM. And what we want to see in the awards is it calls for recognition of individuals that celebrates the value that we place on educational practice. And crucially, those individuals have scholarship-informed practice, okay, based on theories of learning and educational practice out there. In terms of what BAM does with this is we look to create a critical mass of education practice research that is disseminated globally. And these awards are actually overseen by a panel of deans across the UK and overseen also by the 9 members on our BAM MKE subcommittee. So just like to take a moment to thank the subcommittee for their work, not only on these awards, but for all the work that they do for us throughout the whole year. And also a big thank you to the deans that sat looking at the different entries. Their time is really significant and we really appreciate the input that they put into that. So at this moment, I will hand over to Kate, who will talk to you about the 2 different categories that we celebrate in terms of the awards. And crucially, we'll find out who's won this year. Although it might be up there. It was not yet. Good.
Not yet.
Over to you, Kate.
Thanks, Ashley. Thank you. So we have 2 categories of awards. We have the experienced practitioner category and we have the early career category. So we're delighted to announce for the experienced practitioner category, the winner is Newcastle University Business School for their Business in Action, a symbiotic partnership model for experiential management education initiative. And the award is being accepted by Emily Yarrow on behalf of the team today. And the winner of our early career category for the British Academy of Management's Education Practice Award is Dr. Khan Dang and Anne Nguyen from King's College London for their submission, an inquiry-based learning loop, bridging pedagogy, equity and student scholarship and management education through essay competitions and undergraduate research journal initiative. Thank you.
Okay, right, we have last but not least, you'll be pleased to hear, so we're running just about to time, are our Best Reviewer Awards. So I will just note who these are. So with support from our publishing partner Wiley, we established Best Reviewer Awards to recognise outstanding service as a reviewer for our journals, British Journal of Management,
and International Journal of Management Reviews. Unfortunately, our winners of Best Reviewer Awards can't be with us today, but I would like to announce them at this conference. So for the British Journal of Management, Professor Ahmed Arslan. And then for the International Journal of Management Reviews, we have two winners, Professor Oswald Jones and Giacomo Marzi. So just to say thank you to those of you that have hung around for sharing this celebration. We feel it's really important for us to recognise service and contribution to the community. So we appreciate you sharing the celebration and clapping all those people. We will now move on into lunch, I believe, which is in the Kittier building. So do go and join lunch and then we'll come back into paper issues. Have a fantastic conference.